Karen,
Yes.
I know I say this all the time, but this time I really mean it. I am super excited about our guest today.
Great.
You know why?
Nope.
Because she needs no introduction. Really, she needs no introduction. If you're familiar at all with spiritual awakenings, cosmic disclosure, that kind of thing, you really don't need an introduction to.
Well, you've kept me in the dark about this, so I might need a little bit of an introduction.
That's true. Okay, so rather than take up the trying to tease her interview, though, let me just say I'm excited to speak with the preeminent paradigm shifter and psychic medium, Elizabeth April. If that doesn't send shivers up your spine, I don't know that anything will. Mm-hmm. If you have questions about your cosmic identity, space and time, other dimensions, lifetime, self-discovery, soul awakenings, then this, my friends, is the episode for you. But let me warn you, you're going to need to let go of the things that you think you know and come with an open mind, because this conversation is going where this show has never gone before. Cue the music. My name is Will.
And I'm Karen.
And unlike Mulder and Scully,
we both want to believe.
So we've embarked on a journey of discovery.
We've talked to people deeply entrenched in the spiritual and metaphysical world.
We've thrown ourselves into weird and wonderful experiences. I even joined a coven of witches.
And wait, you joined a coven?
Yep, all in the interest of finding something.
Anything.
That will prove that there's something beyond this physical,
three-dimensional world we all live in.
This is the Skeptic Metaphysicians. Hey everyone, I am Will.
And I'm Karen.
And I'm so glad you could join us for another episode of the Skeptic Metaphysician. You're in for a special treat today because we have Elizabeth April on the show. Now, you know, if you followed her at all online, that she was born with extrasensory abilities. And at a young age, she was able to see ghosts and spirits and read energies from other people. Now, since childhood, she has developed these abilities into a huge array of skills. She's clairvoyant, she does remote viewing, she does past life regressions, she has precognition. But one of the most remarkable aspects to me about Elizabeth April is her connection to cosmic disclosures. See, it wasn't until her first conscious alien abduction at the age of 18 that she started to come to the realization that she herself was also connected to these extraterrestrials through past life lineage. Wow, are we in for a treat? Welcome to the show, Elizabeth April. Thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be speaking with both of you today.
I don't even know where to start. There's just so many different directions.
So many questions.
Yeah, so many questions. So I do want to talk about your first conscious abduction because that's a big interest of mine. But before we go into that, I need to ask, what was it like being a little kid and having these precognitive abilities?
Yeah, I mean, in so many ways, I think a lot of kids are born with extrasensory abilities, whether that be just being an empath and feeling what others are feeling, or being able to see things that others can't see. For me, especially growing up in the 90s, I think it was tough. It was tough to make friends. I was definitely always the weird kid. I could never fit in. I was trying to teach my friends how to meditate at a young age, or, I'd go over to a friend's house and see their grandfather walking around who had passed away 4 years earlier, and so you feel different, right? You actually don't realize that you're different until you get into school and you start to realize that not everyone is able to see the things that you can see. So yeah, it was tough. At around the age of 10, I shut all of those abilities down. I went from a very metaphysical world to a very physical world. I realized that all the kids who had all the friends were into sports. So I figured that's what I should do. So I did that for a number of years, and I had the friends, and I did fit in, but I really lost my touch, with spirituality and those kind of extrasensory connections. So at 16, through a lot of questioning and a lot of seeking, I ended up, doing a past life regression for the first time, opened up my mind to reincarnation, to concepts like simultaneous time, and the fact that we are the accumulation of everyone that we've been before. So I ended up getting into past life regression, and 2 years later, that's how I ended up making friends in university, is regressing them. So that was kind of my beginning of the exploration and kind of getting away from and then getting back into, that world.
Wow, that was a fun party trick. Hey, let's go past life regress.
Well, I want to kind of go back to the beginning. How did your family, did they all have gifts as well, or did they treat you differently? Did they believe you, support you? How did that work?
Yeah, good question. So my dad was, we were raised Catholic, so I thought I was talking to God for a very long time. As a matter of fact, at the age of 6, I told my dad that, Dad, the church, the Bible has it all wrong. I've been talking to God, and God's a female. And of course in church they teach you that if you're talking to something that no one else can see, it's either God or the devil, right? It's God or or demons, right? And so I figured, well, whoever I've been talking to is really nice, definitely not the devil, but she's a female. So I realized much later on that it was actually a Pleiadian spirit guide that I had that I could very easily, kind of talk to back then. So I just love the audacity I had at 6 years old to say, nope, the entire religion is wrong because of my experience, which is really cool. And I actually think that this is how we got it all skewed from the very beginning. We didn't have the words. We didn't have the understandings. So even though my dad was the Catholic one and he's an engineer, he brought that spirituality and he was very curious, and he would videotape us, on a cassette recorder and say, okay, what were your dreams last night, and what was God saying to you yesterday, sort of thing. Whereas my mom was really freaked out about my abilities, especially about the ghost stuff. She really shut it down by saying, oh, you've just been watching too many scary movies. And that made me feel so insecure and separated and lonely, because I felt like, my experiences were not being validated and I wasn't being seen or heard. And I obviously didn't realize any of that at that age. So I had two very different experiences from my parents.
Yeah, I can imagine how that, hey, God's a female, might have gone over like a fart in a spacesuit. What are you talking about, child? So then your friends, so you're in college and you're doing these past life regression parties. Did everybody kind of take to these messages that you were bringing out well, or did you ever get people to look at you sideways and say, this chick needs an asylum?
Yeah, so interesting. So after I got abducted, my roommate at the time basically went around to all of my other roommates in my student house and said, Elizabeth is crazy. She thinks she got abducted by aliens. And it was a whole kind of bullying situation. And you got to question yourself. You're like, man, am I crazy? No one else is talking about this stuff. Obviously, I didn't realize there was a whole online community of alien lovers and believers and open-minded people. As far as the past life regressions, I didn't really have to convince many people, because by me taking them into a trance-like state, they would have those experiences themselves. So it wasn't a convincing type thing. However, I did have two, so they were in one of my classes, they were twins from China, and they were both engineers, or they were studying to be, they're in engineering, I guess. Very logical, very analytical. And they didn't believe me that reincarnation was real. That's just not how they were raised. So I said, okay, cool. Well, do one of you want to volunteer? And so I took him into a trance-like state, a deep state of relaxation. And I said, go to one of your most significant past lives. And he said he was swimming in this ocean. And so I said, okay, cool. Well, look down at your feet. What are on your feet? He's like, I don't think I have feet. And I'm no worries. That's fine. Look down at your skin. What are you wearing on your body? Are you wearing a swimsuit? Whatever. I'm trying to gauge the time period. And he's like, I'm not wearing anything. I'm blue. Oh my God. And he sits up out of this regression. He's like, I'm a fish. I was a fish. I'm a fish. And this is a guy who didn't even believe in reincarnation, let alone going into a lifetime where he was a fish. And I've never had anyone just get up out of a regression before. So I'm like, no, close your eyes, go back into a relaxed state. And I really think I made a huge impact on them. And turns out, the biggest project that they were working on was how to change salt water from the ocean into fresh water so that everyone in the world would have access to fresh water. So it's so interesting how that fish lifetime must have been some sort of, support for him and his mission in this lifetime.
You just dropped a bomb here. You're saying that we actually reincarnate as fish, as different animals?
Yeah, plants, animals, fish, and of course, after I was abducted at 18, I started to think about, well, okay, if aliens do exist and they're here and they're curious about humans, obviously, who are they? What are they doing here? What's their significance being here? But also, if they exist and we can be fish or plants or animals or other humans, why can't we just be different interdimensional beings? So that's what opened up the can of worms of, well, let's go ahead and take people off planet. Let's go see your off planet lifetimes and see what that looks like. And what do these beings in different dimensions on different planets and on spaceships, what do they do for a living? What do they eat? How do they exist? Like, I was so curious. And so I started getting into off-planet past lives.
Before we get into that, I want to again take a step back. You say this like before I learned to drive, before the alien abduction.
Right.
What? I need to hear about that.
Yeah, and that's where I was heading next.
So casual, like, before I went to the grocery store.
You keep talking about your first conscious abduction. At first, the word abduction brings to mind this terror, right?
Yeah.
Is that what it was like for you, or was it a pleasant experience?
Yeah, so I always like to preface with the first conscious abduction because when I was a kid, I was abducted quite a few times in childhood. And I didn't even know I was being abducted until the age of 24 when I went to a hypnotherapist myself and I said, all right, I got some childhood issues. I really just wanted to go back into childhood and to complete some childhood traumas. I wasn't expecting to go back to 4 years old and getting abducted on a ship. So that's why I say conscious abduction at 18, because it was the first time I was ever actually aware of being abducted. I went away to attend a silent meditation retreat because it was something that I did in a past lifetime. It's called Vipassana. So I'm like, whoa, so cool. There's a Vipassana center 2 hours away from me in Ontario, Canada. I'm going to go check it out. I'm just going to go and relive this past life. At that point, I'd never even really given a thought to aliens or interdimensionals, let alone thought I was going to be abducted that week. And on the second night of the meditation retreat, I was taken very consciously, very vividly from my bed by 3 tall, very white, almost transparent-like beings. And they basically beamed me up to their ship. I was sitting in this chair. I wasn't able to move. I wasn't able to speak. There was no sort of telepathic communication going on at that time. And there was about 5 or 6 of them in front of me just watching this procedure happen. And then there was one of them off to the right-hand side of me. I felt like he was kind of a doctor. And then there was a machine that put something into my right ear. And just as quickly as it started, it ended, and they put me back into my bed. Basically, the second they left, I got up from my bed. I think I was a bit paralyzed for maybe 15, 20 minutes. I turned on my phone. I started looking up abduction cases in the area. I did have a drop of blood coming from my right ear. For me, that was the physical validation that I needed, even though it was such a vivid experience. And so the whole experience was super fear-based. It was super scary for me. It was nothing I would ever expect. And there was no love coming from them, and the reason why I know I contracted that in my life at that time was to have a negative experience with ETs. I know it sounds weird, but since then, I have had such a positive experience with many different ET species that I just needed the awareness of it's not all rainbows and butterflies. It's not all good vibes all the time. And that really helps me to have compassion for other humans who have gone through very fear-based abduction experiences and to bring the awareness into there's good and bad species, just like there's good and bad humans.
Now, we've had people come on the show and talk to us about conscious contact with the ETs and things like that. And it's really meant, it's based on your conscious level. At some point, did you think that you manifested? Is that what you're saying, that you manifested this fear-based abduction?
Yeah, I believe that everything in our life is contracted. And for a very long time, free will versus destiny, I would try and spite my destiny or spite my fate, spite the timelines that I was rooted in by just doing random stuff all the time, every day. And then I realized that it's our soul, without an ego, without a body, without an incarnation, without a dimension, that chooses this incarnation, that chooses these big life experiences in order for us to learn to gain access to, experiences, lessons, to grow and to move forward. So I really, truly believe I chose that experience for a reason. And it's a very highly debated belief that I have that everyone chooses all of their contracts in their own lifetime to have these lessons, even the bad ones. As a matter of fact, especially the challenging and bad experiences we choose to learn from to grow.
Do you believe that's a consistent reality, or is that something that some people choose where others just kind of go with the flow?
Yeah, I think it's consistent all across the board. So I've done a lot of work within past life regression, but I've also done a lot of work with mediumship and not only, talking with spirits, but crossing spirits over. So I've had a lot of experience in the afterlife type of realm, not only in the afterlife, but the pre-life, before life, how we choose this body, how we choose our family, how we choose our contracts, our lifetime, our blueprint, if you will, for our lifetime. So I believe that there are big moments that are contracted and meant to happen, and there's a lot of free flow moments as well. And I also believe that our free will can trump or override any contract that we have, which makes it a little bit messy. So it's kind of a battle between free will and destiny, but realizing that it's not God, it's not source, it's not your spirit guides, it's not your higher self that chooses your destiny. It's you. It's always been you. You've always had the power.
Well, let's go back to your first abduction again really quickly, because some people listening in are going to think, well, she was 18 years old. She's just getting into the party lifestyle. Could this possibly have been something that you dreamt or you imagined, or are you 100% convinced this is a physical, tangible reality?
Yeah, it's a good question. So since then, I've had a lot of lucid dreams, a lot of astral traveling, a lot of very physical things, a lot of non-physical things with interdimensionals and with this reality. And, looking back, I'm 100% without a doubt positive that that really did happen. And it happened in the physical. As a matter of fact, 3 weeks after it took place, I felt like I was being watched all the time. So I stopped all of my astral exploration, all my lucid dreaming, astral traveling, telepathy, all of that. I had to stop. I felt like, I don't know what their reason was for abducting me. So are they going to body snatch? Are they going to come into my body? Like, what are they going to do? So I had to be really kind of closed down and protected. So I ended up going to a medical medium and I said, look, I don't know what's going on with me, but can you please just do your thing and check it out? So she scans my body and she's like, oh, you've got an implant in your right ear. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, it looks like you were abducted and it looks like they put an implant in you and they've been tracking you ever since. And it just confirmed so many things without me ever even telling her what had happened. It was a really amazing confirmation for me. And she was able to, what she called it was deactivate it. She said it was intelligent, but it was also made of organic material. So she said she basically just unclipped it from my body. And she said, yep, you're good to go. And I really didn't believe her because I don't know what a medical medium is. I don't know what this thing is.
Right.
And for 2 weeks afterwards, I had the strangest ear drainage, like to the point where my pillow would be stained just out of my right ear. And almost immediately after walking out of her office, I felt free. I felt like I was no longer being watched or followed. And so for me, that was even extra validation that this really took place. And she was able to see kind of what they put in there.
Oh, interesting. We've had the other side of the equation. We've had a couple of medical intuitives come on the show and talk to us about deactivating trackers and things like that. We've never seen it from this perspective. Maybe offline we'll talk about who it is. I'm wondering if it's someone we've already had. But I know, Karen, you've got lots of questions. I can see it all over your face. I don't want to hog the interview.
Well, no. I mean, you're asking good questions. I'm interested. So after that, were you, and with the other, I guess, non-fear-based contact or communication, what was the next experience you had?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, great.
That you kind of called out for, or did it just happen?
It just happened because, after that, I came home from this silent meditation retreat, which is ironic in and of itself to be abducted at a silent meditation retreat. I couldn't tell anyone. I so badly wanted to go to the leaders and say,
It would have been awful.
what's going on? Like, has anyone else been abducted here? Like, is this a hot spot? There was actually a military base right down the street. So it was a hot spot, you know? Anyway.
Okay, for the record, I think there should be some sort of clause in the contract that says someone's abducted, you can talk.
Yes, definitely. Or at least
but
write
I mean,
Right.
you know, then there's this fear of, but if I do talk, if I do tell anyone, I'm just going to be made out to be this absolute nutter. And unfortunately, the first person that I told, my roommate, who was also my friend at the time, totally bullied me and made it look like I was crazy to everyone else around me, which so I wasn't open about the experience. I was very scared, especially after feeling like I was being watched. So I didn't really call in a whole lot of experiences after that. I was kind of muted myself a little bit. But then it was about 3 or 4 months after that where I was hanging out with my friends in my student house, and I started to feel very lightheaded, very dizzy. This was typically my sign that I was either too out of body or whatever. So I'm like, hey guys, like, continue hanging out. I'm going to go into my bedroom and I'm just going to meditate for a second. I'm just going to kind of tune in. And the second that I did that, I sat down on my bed, I closed my eyes, and there was this 7-foot tall, etheric, humanoid man that walked into my room from the corner of my room, just walked in. And it was so funny because I was not used to etheric beings. So I opened my eyes, he's not there. Close my eyes, he's right there. Open my eyes, he's gone. Close my eyes, he's right there. So it was kind of like the process of closing my physical eyes, open my third eye, which is what I was used to during astral traveling, lucid dreaming, that kind of stuff. But once again, I never had this experience with etheric beings before. So, you know, and he was pretty amused by me just being so shocked at his presence.
He's like, why is she blinking?
Yeah, exactly. And so he told me that he was a Pleiadian being from the Galactic Federation, had no idea what either of those things were. And he said that there was going to be a meeting that I needed to attend, a Galactic Federation meeting that I needed to attend in 2 days' time. And I specifically remember the date. It was December 21st, 2011. I remember this very clearly because we were all getting ready for the end of the world 2012. January 1st, 2012,
Right.
the world's dying, right? So he told me, he's like, the meeting is going to take place at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which is my time zone at the time. And he said, you need to make sure that you're awake. And I said, okay. So, and then just like that, he was gone. And funny enough, I walked into my living room and I said, hey guys, I just got greeted by some etheric Pleiadian being. I don't know. And we all laughed about it like it was a joke, but I was like pretty serious and I didn't want to let them know how serious I was. So 2 days later, I ended up getting a large coffee. I slept. I woke up at 1 a.m. I chugged back the coffee. I was very used to this behavior because I was a student. So I was studying, you know, full nights or whatever. So I chug my coffee at 1 a.m. I meditate for about 45 minutes. And at 2 a.m. on the dot, he steps into my room again. Now, I wasn't sure if this was going to be a physical abduction, like a meeting on a ship, or if it was going to be some sort of astral thing. I was prepared for both. And when he came to me in the astral, he said, follow me. Immediately, I knew that it was an astral experience. So I was very used to this. I followed him. Now, at this point in my astral adventures, and remote viewing adventures, I'd never been off the planet. So we go up, you know, away from my student house, and up and up and up. And I'm like, oh my God, I've never been here before. And we're at the kind of the Earth's, you know, line, but I don't know what it's called, but that line at the Earth and atmospheric level. And I'm like, wow. And I remember stopping and just looking back at the Earth, feeling like, I can't believe I've never been off planet before. And he kept going. So I'm like, oh, I got to catch up. So I'm following him. And then we go to the moon. And I'm like, oh my God, this meeting is going to be on the moon. How cool is this? And instead of going somewhere on the moon, he goes right into the moon. And I'm like, what? I knew I could walk through walls. I didn't know I could walk through planets. Like, that's what we did. So he went right into the moon and we arrive at this huge hollow room inside the moon. So my mind is blown. But not only that, it's a room that's full of interdimensional beings. There must have been hundreds of thousands of different interdimensional beings in this circular room. And there was these seats all along the edges of the circular room. And they were all there physically. And then there was probably a couple of thousand astral bodies, so astral beings. So they were all hovering above the room. And I could tell that they were probably humans just like me, because their grounding cords, I could see their etheric cords also connecting back to planet Earth. So I'm like, oh my God, there's a bunch of humans here too. And I must have been really rude because I was so curious at what these beings look like. I'd never seen so many beings before in my life, aliens before in my life. So I went right up to them. I didn't, now looking back, I'm like, that's pretty rude. But I was like, just like, like my face was right up in their face. Like, who are you? What are you? Like, you're so different than me, and then this meeting started, and there was like this literal hovering platform in the middle of the room, this tall gray being who, once again, at the time, I didn't realize it, but I heard English in my mind. And I was like, oh, I just assumed, oh, wow, everyone here speaks English. Like, so funny how I was just so, just didn't know that telepathy, right, it almost translates instantly into whatever you can understand and conceive into your language. And they talked about many things. They talked about the battle that's happening on planet Earth, a giant shift that is about to take place. These people who are meant to kind of be leaders on planet Earth, volunteers coming from the Galactic Federation. All of this was new to me. I had no idea what they were talking about, but I was pretty happy to be there. And then I think it was about an hour-long meeting. Felt like it was hours long. And it was just about 45 to 60 minutes in our time zone. And yeah, came back into my body. I was pretty amazed, went to sleep. And that was 10 plus years ago. And I've been unpacking that stuff and trying to lead the charge on this shift in consciousness ever since.
You just dropped this as if it was just a regular occurrence. Like, yeah, we're going to go grab a cup of coffee somewhere. But you just said a lot, Elizabeth, like a lot. It just feels wild. Everything you're saying, I want to wholeheartedly embrace, but it's hard, right? For our physical three-dimensional beings who we've lived for some odd years just thinking this is, Newtonian physics is the only thing. Suddenly quantum physics come into the world and it changes everything. But now you're seeing at a very young age, you're having these experiences, these adventures that people just go, that was George Lucas, right? I mean, but you are so certain, like your convictions, you can feel it. Mm-hmm. Like I know you're not making this stuff up. So how can you convey that information out to people to say, dudes, this is real. This is not my imagination.
Yeah, that's and I battle this often, but what it comes down to, and I say this in almost every video, every podcast I put out there, that my experiences are my own. And for me to try and convince anyone that this is real when they haven't had the experience is a losing battle. So I always like to say, take it or leave it. If this resonates with you, if there's a part of your soul that is like, oh my goodness, she just said everything I've questioned my whole life, then that's for you. That this interview, this conversation, this experience that I had, that's for you. And if there's something deep within that doesn't resonate, that screams out, that says, this is wrong, this goes against everything, then it's not for you in this moment, right? It's not my job, it's not my mission to convince anyone of anything, because I know that they haven't had the exact experiences that I have. But I also know that by planting a seed with the knowledge, the experience, the information, the visuals that I've experienced myself, it really opens people's minds to the possibilities. And I really think that that's my purpose in life, is to just shift paradigms, is to seek truth, the truth beyond the veil, the layers of this reality that we've been taught is the only reality. I do believe in the third dimension frequency, or this physical dimension, but I also believe that there are many other dimensions that we can't necessarily perceive with our five senses. And I believe that we are all psychic. I believe that we all have the ability to tap in, because we are all consciousness in a physical body, right? So I really do believe that by sharing my experiences in just the way that I've experienced them, it's going to really open minds and allow other people to have their own weird experiences and hopefully not feel so outcasted, not feel so odd and so lonely in their experiences, just like I did when I first started having them.
Oh, bravo. Really well stated. Really appreciate that. But let's go down that rabbit hole. Karen, I'm sure this is where you were headed. Let's go down the rabbit hole. You mentioned that they talked to you about this shift that the world is undergoing. What is that shift? What message do we need to have?
Yeah, so I actually have meetings with the Galactic Federation every month now, and I ask them the big questions. What's happening with planet Earth? What do we need to know? How can humans best help and also prepare ourselves for this shift?
Hmm.
So I have those meetings on the 11th of every month, and I bring people into the meetings now. Used to just have the meetings myself and astral travel up to the ship, and now I bring people in, which is really beautiful. And so a message that they gave me back in 2018 was that there was a time period between 2020 and 2024 where we are going to utterly collapse the old Earth frequency, the third dimension frequency. And what I mean by utterly collapse is all of the systems that were created to help and assist that 1% and to really suppress the unique brilliance of the 99%, that system is flipping. That system is shifting. But before we can go into a solution, a system of solution, a system of equality for everyone all around the planet, we have to collapse the old system. We have to collapse education. We have to collapse religion. We have to collapse finance. We have to collapse environmental systems because they're just not serving the planet and they're definitely not serving humanity. So they gave me that information back in 2018. 2020 to 2024. Where are we right now? We're
It's
2022.
smack in the
We
middle
are
of it.
halfway through, okay?
Yeah.
We're right in the middle of it. And of course, when everything happened in 2020, I was so beyond excited. I was like, yes, this is what they were talking about. It's happening. There is something here that is affecting every citizen of the planet, and I believe affecting them in a positive way because we are learning not to get sucked into the matrix. We're learning not to get sucked into the polarity, to the paradigm, to the fear, to the distraction, to the projection. A lot of us have learned that. A lot of us are still sucked into the fear, are still hanging on with our dear lives onto every word that, the politics or the news says. And so we're still learning, right? But we're also still collapsing. And so, every year since 2020, I keep saying, I'd like to say it's going to get better. But we're at a point now where it has to get worse before it gets better. There are many other systems we have to collapse before we can bring in the solutions. And guess what? The solutions are out there. Free energy technologies, right? Cures for cancer. Cures for pollution. These solutions have been out there for a very long time, but the powers that be have not wanted those solutions out there because they don't want equality. They don't want us stepping into our conscious awareness. They don't want us to be free. And that's ultimately where we're going. We're going into freedom. We're moving into sovereignty, and we're moving into a place where every action, every reaction, every thought that we have not only contributes to our own health, well-being, and ability to thrive, but it contributes to the collective health, well-being, and ability to thrive for everyone. And that's truly what the Galactic Federation and these beings are here to do. They're here to help us move into unity so that we can all benefit from the resources and the things that we've got going on this planet.
So then, according to the Federation and to what you've learned and understood from them, there definitely is going to be an upside because it just feels like things are so negative, and the climate and the people and the craziness and the pollution, and it's so toxic. It just feels like that's it. We're just going down a hell in a handbasket and it's done. But they're telling you that that's not the case.
Yeah, exactly. So, probably every 3 or 4 months, I have a little, I call it a human breakdown. And I go storming up in my astral body to the Galactic Federation. I'm like, what are you guys doing? You're not doing your job. You're not helping out. You're not giving back enough. You're not intervene. Come on. I always kind of have this little human emotional breakdown, and I get pissed off at them, to be honest. And every single time, they always circle it back around to, there's not much they can do. They're here to assist, they're here to support, but because of the law of non-intervention, they cannot fully just intervene and give us everything we need. Human beings have to decide that we want better. And I think that this is where the elites are really sticking their foot in their mouth. They're driving us to such a deep, low place that at a certain point in time, human beings at an individual and collective level have to come to a point of realization, where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're sick and tired of being in fear, and they make another choice. And that's what I had to make of, I'm sick and tired of being all about the agendas, the conspiracies, the fear, the Illuminati, the elites. I'm sick and tired of that. And not only thinking about it all the time, but feeding into it, playing into it by thinking about it and projecting it with my very precious consciousness, right? We all have this ability to co-create the collective reality. So what I'm really prompting people to do is to set an intention for the highest possible timeline. What's the best that could happen rather than what's the worst that could happen? And by doing that, yes, we have a very extremely bright future ahead of us. And to be honest, as crazy as this world is, we're on track. We are completely on track to get to a point where we turn everything around in our lifetime and really, truly make a better future for our children.
Well, that sounds amazing.
It does.
It
Oh
really
my gosh.
does sound amazing. And you're right. We're looking like that. We can only see the forest for the trees. We're right smack in the middle of all the drama right now, and everything just looks so bleak. So it's nice to know that there's hope. But if you ever need a volunteer,
I knew you were going to. I was waiting. I've been waiting for you.
she says she brings people over. I am on board. You just say the word, Elizabeth. I am right there with you.
A lot longer to put that out there than I thought.
Well, I was trying.
Good for you.
I was trying to be respectful of both of your times, and you were having a nice conversation. I didn't want to butt myself in and say hello.
Take me, please.
But just putting it out there. I did not think our conversation was going to go this way,
Nor
and
did I.
I am thrilled that it did. But there's so much more we could talk about. Like, I know that there's a connection between your abductions and how you see yourself, specifically with the fact that you actually have experienced past lives as a star being, right? As well as channeling certain beings that aren't the stereotypical angel, spiritual guide kind of consciousness. So really, we're running out of time, but I'd really love to hear your thoughts. How are we connected with these aliens?
Yeah, great question. So, one of the things that I've discovered about ancient human history and the Galactic Federation is that the number one way the Galactic Federation figured that they could help humanity is to bring in as many volunteers as possible. So what they did a very long time ago was they asked members of the Galactic Federation, all different species, all different beings from all different dimensions, does anyone want to volunteer to go to planet Earth to help humanity, to help the civilization there? And many of them did. And I truly believe that I'm one of these starseeds. I'm a volunteer here to help humanity, but I also believe that so many people are. Probably a lot of individuals who listen to you guys, a lot of people in my own community are starseeds, are these volunteers. You don't have to be some sort of spiritual teacher, guru, or leader to be a starseed. There are mums, there are garbage men, there are, dog walkers who are all these incredibly powerful consciousness, these beings who are here to uplift the planet. And one thing I want to kind of leave people off with, because the number one question I get asked is, how do I know my mission and how do I know if I'm on my mission? And I would say that it's really important for starseeds to understand and realize, these volunteers to realize, that there's not too much that they really need to say or do in order to be aligned to their highest mission and purpose. Just having their presence on this planet is enough for the planet to shift its vibration. So just know that don't put a lot of pressure on yourself for what that mission is. Most likely, if you're listening to this right now, you're already aligned to your highest mission and you're doing really good work, and continue to focus on and feed into love and not fear, because that really helps the collective as well.
Oh, there's so many more rabbit holes we can go down, Elizabeth. I'm so thankful for your time. I know that you are super busy, and I appreciate that you took the time to talk to us. If someone wanted to learn more about you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, just Google Elizabeth April. You'll find my book. You'll find we've got a membership platform connecting other starseeds, so much content. There's so many things that I'm doing, courses, all of that great stuff, but really just Elizabeth April, and you'll find it all there.
Awesome. Well, we're going to put direct links in our show notes to your website, ElizabethApril.com. We didn't even get a chance to talk about Unidentified, the show that you're doing on Peacock with Demi Lovato, who I love. So, I mean, you are everywhere So we're going to put links, as many links as we can actually fit in our show notes so that people could reach out to you and follow you, because you are absolutely fascinating.
And I have to, this is going to sound like such a weird comment, but I just love the way you speak. I mean, your choice of words and how you string them together and your voice, I could just listen to you for hours.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So in fact, we're going to try to, after we stop recording, we're going to try to entice her to come back again, because we literally just scratched the surface. But Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for coming along on this journey of discovery with us. If you know someone that would benefit from hearing these messages that we shared on this episode or any of our others, we would really love it if you do them and us a favor and share the show with them. It's super easy. You might just help change someone's life. And if you're listening to this on the radio and you missed something, not to worry. All of our shows, including this one, can be found at skepticmetaphysician.com, where you can also watch the videos or even send us emails or voicemails directly from the site. We are not going to put you on any list. We're not going to sell you anything. We just absolutely love hearing feedback and would appreciate hearing from you as well. We hope you enjoyed this episode as much as we have. It's all for now, but we'll see you on the next episode of The Skeptic Metaphysicians. Until then, take care.